Hi, everybody. Today is September 7th, 2011, and it's time for the PC Perspective Podcast. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Al Malventano.
We are back with the normal group and our normal locations, and we have a week's worth of hardware news and reviews to discuss. I guess I would consider this a slower than normal week, although last week you guys did do the show without me. How did everything go? I assume it went swimmingly?
Crappy. I was the worst host ever with an A.
How's that different than
No,
the
no.
other weeks while I'm gone?
I don't talk as much.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
sometimes
see.
I'm the worst host.
Automatically improves quality of podcast.
Well, it happens. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you guys is, what did you discuss about the Asus Mars 2 card?
It's heavy.
Big.
It's square.
These are
It's
all appropriate
$1,400.
adjectives. Yes, continue. Yes, okay. I wanted to make sure you covered all the bases, and that pretty much does it. Fastest video card ever, just like Josh was the worst host ever, and pretty expensive as well, $13.99, I think. Actually, if you go to Newegg, you can't even buy the card separately.
They're
It's required.
bundling it again?
Yes, you have to spend $8,000. You get a really nice system, but it comes with 990X and X58 motherboard and SSDs and hard drives and all that kind of stuff.
$8,000.
Yes, it's a really, I think it's $8,000. I don't know.
Okay. So I normally say for outlandishly expensive things that like I have bought cars for cheaper, but I have put down payments on houses for cheaper than that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's expensive here. Let me double check here. So the Mars 2,
I bought a mobile home once for $7,000.
I thought we were still in a recession.
Strangely enough, it didn't produce as much heat as the system does, but still.
So it's listed as $1,499, but it says this item can only be purchased in a combo. So let's take a look at this combo. Oh, I'm sorry. I said 8. It's $4,088. Okay.
Okay, still.
So
But can I still
here's
put a used car tire on top of it to make it go quiet?
Might work.
You can do that if you want. Let me put a link here in the chat so we can kind of scroll through that list. So you get a Silverstone Raven case valued at $229. You get the Asus Rampage 3 Black Edition X58 motherboard, which sells for $560. You get the 3 GB card valued at $14.99. The Antec High Current Pro 1200 watt power supply for $280. You get the Core i7-990X Extreme Edition Gulftown processor at 6 cores of 130 watts of power for $999. You get 120 gigabyte G.Skill Phoenix Pro Series SSD. You get 12 gigabytes of G.Skill DDR3 1600 memory. You get one 3 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive valued at $180, and one Asus Blu-ray burner SATA drive valued at $99. You do get a combo discount of $147 on all these components. So I think you'll find that it is not only a rocking deal, but it's a great value.
Okay,
well.
Ryan, that's 3.5% off.
For great value.
Yes, that is a correct number. But there is a $20 rebate.
But does
Oh.
that have free shipping?
Joy.
Restrictions apply.
There is a $20 rebate. Look, I'm not saying everybody should go buy this. If you're going to build a high-end system, or maybe you're looking at having one of those, having one built for you by Main Gear or somebody like that, here's a package where they've got all this stuff together for you, and you're going to build a really kick-ass system. Plus, you'll get one of these limited edition graphics cards, et cetera, et cetera. I think you guys probably talked about that enough last week, so I will leave it at that. But it is.
I don't know.
It is.
That's still the price of my whacked out Dream System dually.
Sorry, we're still
it's
working on
$4,700.
we're still working on the
and then
combo
you got 2
deal.
Xeons. You've got 4 GTX 580s. It's. I thought it was ridiculous. Apparently,
It
is.
I wasn't going crazy enough.
There's a lot of things in that combo, like a $560 motherboard, that I don't think very many people are going to be interested in actually purchasing. So,
And that's a 3 gigabit serial ATA SSD, not 6 gigabit.
Oh, harsh.
did you check that
So-
out on the SSD decoder?
Well, I had it off the top of my head actually, since
Oh,
we've
I
just
see.
recently updated the SSD decoder, which we might as well mention if you want to.
Yes, let's do. Alan, our very favorite SSD guru at PCPerspective.com, has gone through a lot of work to update the SSD decoder. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the updates, what you changed, not any of the technical issues right into, but what new content is on there? Did you update your picks, that kind of thing?
Yep, everything front to back update. The only stuff that's still there is all the older model solid state drives, basically. So we just we added to it. I didn't want to just totally purge out the old stuff or stuff that's no longer available, mainly because you still got people trying to buy them used, anything like that. So it's still a handy reference. In the coming weeks, I'm probably going to go through it and like maybe gray out the part numbers for for all those really old drives you can't get your hands on anymore. But all the new 6 gigabit models are in there. I've started adding 1.8 inch form factor. I added some more PCI Express form factor stuff. Still a few more to add on that as well, PCI Express specifically. But yeah, all the new stuff, Intel 310, 320, 311, SAN 4 6 gigabit.
Asynchronous, toggle flash.
Yeah, that's another point. Okay, so you have a lot of vendors that are coming out with, like you have your OCC Agility 3 versus your Vertex 3 versus your Vertex 3 Max IOPS edition, which is actually like a separate one. The difference between those three being asynchronous flash, synchronous flash, or toggle mode. Toggle mode is the Toshiba / Samsung style versus the Intel / Micron style. And each one has its advantages and disadvantages. The asynchronous stuff is the cheapest. Synchronous, a little more expensive, but a little higher quality control because it has the data transfer is just much faster. And then the toggle mode stuff is just known for slightly lower latency. So it's not so much a boost in throughput versus the other stuff, but just it's a totally different spec, and that spec it's a little more nimble as far as access times and whatnot.
Right.
So for a single access, they're pretty much all the same. But when you start really stacking up the IOs on these drives, you start to see the difference. So I've for the drives that we know that information on, I've noted that in the decoder as well. So you'll see where it used to just say MLC and SLC, it actually says the asynchronous, synchronous, or toggle, and I'm even throwing in what the process is. So, for example, 34 nanometer, 25 nanometer, that kind of thing. And I'm going to keep populating those as well now that I've made those changes to the format in general.
Right.
We'll just keep building on it. But yeah, pretty good stuff. The number of entries in the table has doubled since the last update. So there are twice the number of models of solid-state drives in existence since the last time we updated this thing.
Not a surprise to those of us that pay attention to the releases and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it's just over a year and twice the number versus... So now there's like Moore's Law for how many different models of solid-state drives there are, I guess. Which is really going to suck for me. But anyhow...
So the decoder has been updated. If you are looking for SSD information, what is the URL everybody should be visiting and passing on to their friends and neighbors?
PCPer.com/SSD. And I also updated the pics too.
Don't type in STD. You'll get a big surprise from Ryan.
Yeah, it'll...
And that list is doubled as well.
What is the picture-serving website that people should be cautious of, possibly? Is it
ImageUR? ImageUR.com? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so speaking of internet STDs, there was more than just the link that Ryan was exposed to today, actually. There's some, just stay away from ImageUR URLs for like a day or two. They have some nasty JavaScript injection.
Yeah, I got infected by it, and it turned all of my files on my computer into hidden system files. Which really sucks. All my applications will still run, but none of them show up in the start menus anymore, or anything like that. And my only alternative at this point is to go through each directory and unsystem file them, which is going to be a huge pain in the ass. So
yeah,
awesome. That's awesome news. All right, let's get to talk about a couple of other reviews that we posted up. First up, Kingwin Striker, 500-watt power supply, but this is interesting. It's a fanless power supply, 0 decibel operation. No fan inside of here. Completely passively cooled power supply. Now these, there haven't been very many of these releases. They're pretty popular, obviously, for those of us who are interested in home theater PCs, anybody who's just interested in quiet computing in general. Nothing is quieter than having no fans in a particular device. No more spinning objects. No more spinning. No more.
Unless you
What's
have
that?
vibrating chokes. And I mean, everybody likes vibrating chokes.
Absolutely.
Wait,
No,
am I in the right forum?
Problem with
This is
fanless
actually
power
pretty
supply
good.
is you need a fan inside the system. Straight up, something's got to move air.
Yes,
Well,
but
It's one thing I've never understood.
well, I mean, you can get by on completely fanless system if you have good air movement otherwise, right?
If you have like
you
a,
might-
if you have
you
like
might
an
need 120.
aluminum, yeah, if you have one of those like Lian Li aluminum chassis, right? Along with that, and then I don't know, as long as it passes the heat fast enough, or has enough just open to air,
Yeah.
type stuff like cooling slots or something on your case. Yeah, you could potentially run completely fanless. Throw one of those, get like a Sandy,
Ionic breeze.
like a lower end Sandy Bridge motherboard with that power supply and using the Intel GPU, like the Sandy Bridge GPU and everything. And so you've got everything all in one solution. And then all you got to do is slap one of those nice, larger style passive heat sinks on the CPU. And you're probably golden as long as there's at least some kind of, you put it in a sealed box, just like Jeremy's saying, nothing's going to cook, right? But as long as your case has some kind of decent, holes at the bottom, holes at the top, you'll get,
Agreed.
you'll get.
Well, now we know why
natural
Anand
airflow.
stopped testing all of his system reviews by wrapping them in saran wrap. You guys remember those days?
No,
We let
No,
it
I
run for
don't.
3 hours and it failed.
Incubation. Yeah.
Interesting. So it's rated at 500 watts continuous power output, and it easily overclocks to 600 watts even in its fanless state. So you have to read the review and see what we're talking about when we talk about overclocking a power supply. It does have, so it's a single 12-volt rail design up to 41.5 amps. It does have support for NVIDIA SLI and ATI Crossfire with 4 PCIe connectors. Maybe counterintuitive to having those types of features on a passive power supply, right? Obviously your goals are that, but maybe you've got really high-end water-cooled GTX 460s or something like that that you know are going to keep quiet. So those are options there. If I go to the last page of the review, Lee obviously wrote this one for us. He is our power supply guru, just like we have an SSD guru. It's $159 is the retail price. It is a kind of a steep price for a 500 watt unit, but you are basically paying for the higher end components that will survive and last through the strenuous cycles of being passively cooled. He rates it as its strengths obviously being silent operation, pretty efficient at an 80 plus platinum standard, as you would expect for something that's running passive. Very good voltage regulation, clean DC outputs. Weakness, premium price. It does have a good 5-year warranty though as well. It did get the PC Perspective Gold Award, so wear that badge proud. And kind of in conjunction with that, we posted another review, more of a kind of like a video preview of sorts, video perspective, if you will, of the Antec Solo 2 chassis that was actually launched this week. This falls into their Sonata line of cases, which maybe not everybody is completely familiar with. This is kind of their quiet computing, quiet cooling type line of products as well. And the original Solo came out in early 2006, so don't be surprised if you don't remember the predecessor to the Solo 2. So this is a fairly small case. They do a good job with some interesting features on it. It does have a top-mounted power supply, which would actually be good for this passive power supply because the heat can vent right out the top. There's a mesh vent right above where the power supply mounts on this case. It's relatively small, but it does have USB 3.0 front panel headers with the new 3.0 connector on it, not the cables that run through the back of the case and into the motherboard. It has, get this, it says that this case has support for graphics cards up to 15 inches in length, which those don't exist yet. But if they ever do exist, right? I mean, the Mars 2 that we talked about earlier and that you guys talked about last week is 12.5 inches, I believe. And that's, I think, the longest graphics card I have seen and tested here. So you should be good there. I think we have a picture in the video of the Mars 2 actually installed in this case. It's kind of funny. But it does take full-size ATX. One of the downsides, in my opinion, is it only supports 3 hard drives, 3.5-inch hard drives. And it has 2 mounting methods, which is kind of odd as well. It has standard tray, it's kind of, it's got silicon grommet hard drive trays that you can access through the front when you open the door. That's how you fit in 3. It also has the suspension system. And I've always wondered, Alan, I think we talked about this a long time ago with the Antec Lamboy Air, where they had these suspension systems where there's essentially fabric bands that hold a hard drive up, not touching anything else, nothing else holding it in place except the friction of those bands. So it's completely disconnected from the case. The idea that they're saying that this promotes is you don't get any vibration noise, you don't get any issues with that. Obviously, you don't want to like pick up the case and move it from room to room a whole lot if it's in this type of scenario. Is there an issue though if your case is stable and secure with using that type of mounting mechanism for spindle-based hard drives?
The mount is okay as long as it doesn't allow the drive to yaw. In other words, twist. Right. So as long as it's holding
it definitely
from
would,
twisting.
Based on how it sits in there. Yeah.
Oh, this is the one where you were tapping on it and it was bouncing all over the place, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, there are like white papers and stuff out there that talk about like complete hanging suspension like that will negatively affect your seek time of some hard drives. Depends on the hard drive.
Okay.
Yeah, because if the drive isn't going to be able to compensate for something like that, or if it doesn't know that it's happening, and hard drives are made to assume that that's not happening, right? Because they assume that they're rigidly mounted.
I see.
So drives that won't be susceptible to that are like Velociraptors and RE series Western Digital drives, because those are the ones with the rotary acceleration feed forward, RAF. That's the accelerometer tech,
Gotcha.
where they put a couple of accelerometers in the drive and they compensate for the drive moving.
All right.
But it's not a huge,
Okay.
Don't be like, oh my God, I have to take my
It's
drive
not
out
going
of
to
there
scratch
right
the
now.
platters, right?
No, that should not happen.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It does have a 2.5-inch drive mount location underneath the 3 hard drive bays, which is actually kind of nice. Even if you have really long graphics cards, the 2.5-inch drive sits flush against the back of the motherboard tray. It basically screws directly to the motherboard tray, so that you kind of get one more location for free, essentially that way. It has a huge opening on the back or on the motherboard tray itself for removing back plates on motherboards if you want to change cooling solutions on the after you have everything installed. It has filters for the fan intakes on the front of the case, which is nice. So go to the website, go to PCPer.com, check out our video perspective there. I've got a short little video review, kind of goes over some of the features and options associated with that case. And I believe this is a case that's going to run you about $130. So kind of modestly priced. It does kind of put it into pricing category with some of the, I would say, maybe potentially better cases, higher end enthusiast models. This is kind of aimed at that quiet market, not the performance market, but definitely worth taking a look at if you're going to build a new system around something. Any more comments on that? If not, no, good, no. All right.
A video is worth 1,000 words, and some of them are not good.
Right, but ours is great.
Yes, fantastic.
Our video is fantastic. It's worth like 10,000 words at least. Finally, Matt Smith posted a review of the Asus ePad Transformer, the TF101, and the accompanying keyboard dock. Came away pretty impressed with this in terms of Android tablet in general there. I got to spend a little bit of time with this device as well, and it compared to the Motorola Zoom, I definitely like this device much better, especially with the keyboard dock. He makes a comment at the end of the review, though, that if you are buying this combination of products with the intent of typing for several hours a day, you're gonna use this as a productivity machine, not just for the occasional typing of email and that kind of stuff, that you might want to look at netbooks. You might want to look at some of the $400, $500, $600 CULV notebooks instead. But if you just like the idea of having a keyboard and a touchpad kind of handy when you do need it, and you like the additional battery life you get, it's kind of impressive. The Transformer itself gets about 8.5 hours almost of battery life playing back YouTube video. That's pretty good. You add in the keyboard dock, which not only has, the keyboard and the touchpad, but it also adds battery life to the machine as well, and you're getting over 14 hours of battery life, continuous YouTube playback on a single charge. That's pretty impressive, I think. And if you're doing other things, not watching video, then you might expect it to get a little bit longer as well. So check out that review if you are interested in the tablet market, some competitors to Apple's iPad, and take a look at that. So we're going to jump into some news and some emails and even a video question later as well. I know you guys are excited about that. But first, let's take a quick break and thank today's surprise podcast sponsor. All right. I hope everyone was surprised to hear from Rajiv again, because that was the surprise. We do have... I know. We do have another contest we're going to talk to you about later on. Before emails, after the news, make sure you stick around and listen. We're going to give you the opportunity to win a Drobo completely for free. I'm not exactly sure what model yet. I'm waiting for an email back on what that is, but we're going to give away a couple of Drobos over the course of the next couple of weeks. So pay attention here. This is the first. We haven't even posted it on the website yet. Especially if you're watching this live, you're going to want to pay attention, because you get first dibs on the opportunity to win a free Drobo. So let's move on and talk about news. Hopefully some of you guys caught up on all this type of stuff. Who wants to talk about Zotac releasing new ZBox Nano devices, the 8010 series of mini PCs? These are like super ultra tiny, like even smaller than the Z boxes that we might be familiar with.
Sure, I'll take it. Cool. Why not? Is this the one that Jeff from Tech Report did a big review on the other day?
That's the one.
Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty snappy looking piece of equipment. It's tiny. It's like that big. Fits on the back of your monitor.
This is an audio podcast. It's 127 millimeters by 127 millimeters by 45 millimeters. Not much bigger than your traditional.
Could you please put that in King's English?
I said not much bigger than.
I'm all about Imperial, man. Imperial.
A very tall case fan. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, it's small. It runs on the AMD E350, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's still got like 2 gigs of memory on it. It comes with a small laptop drive in one of the higher end models, one of the really, really, really skinny ones, like 320 gigs. And I know that he used it in a bunch of tests and came away very, very impressed. Even able to do some gaming on his 1080p monitor / TV. Mm-hmm. And it was quiet. It had built-in wireless. It had USB 3.0. Had pretty much everything you could really want in it. And it's just
wireless
super small. Pardon? Wireless N. Even comes with an antenna instead of a crappy internal.
Mm-hmm. Is that so? I see. I'm looking at the back. It has DisplayPort, HDMI, 2 USB 3.0 ports, gigabit Ethernet, standard USB ports. Is that a eSATA port on there as well?
Yeah, it's got eSATA. And the audio out is optical enabled as well, so you can toss link it and go straight to your, stereo receiver.
Or just use the HDMI cable and Bitstream HD audio.
Just the cable.
Sorry,
altogether.
I still have like a 55-inch rear projection CRT, so there's no HDMI for me.
So behind the times. So behind.
Is it really a rear? It's not a DLP.
No. It's not a DLP. There are 3 tubes in the bottom of my television.
It's before the era of DLP, because I still have a DLP TV, and I got to be honest, I feel like I'm behind the curve. So
yeah, see, your light bulb burns out. Mine doesn't.
It did do that once. I've had it for about 5 years, and it did in fact do that once. Anyway, back to this ZBox, the 8010. Anything else about this? Does it? I mean,
it
doesn't
for cheap. It's like
drive,
what,
right?
$260, but $320 for the full meal deal with a hard drive in it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's dirt cheap. And considering how cheap hard drives are in general and memory, it doesn't matter whether you get the the bare bones or the premium version, you can stock it with whatever you want for an extra $70 for about as much as it gets. But yeah,
So it's a memory card reader in the front too, huh?
Yeah, neat little piece of equipment and tiny, small, kind of like Jeremy.
That's the perfect streaming box for your home theater PC kind of thing. That's basically home theater PC, perfect one. I saw some. So maybe you guys know this. I saw some Lenovo like thing similar to this the other day, but it came with this really awesome looking like keyboard, like a T-shaped like thumb keyboard that had the mouse and everything all built in. Like, is there a good solution for that?
I did not see that.
Like, do any of us know, like, if somebody bought the Zotac thing, what's the other side of that you need to buy so you can sit on your couch and use it? Like, is there a good answer to that yet?
My favorite object was not the Roku, it was what was that company that was going to make an Ion-based home theater PC that had a remote control that was a standard remote control, but on the other side was a keyboard.
Wasn't that the Motorola thing or something? Like a Motorola made?
They might have done it as well, but there was a company that they did release a product several months ago, maybe a year ago. Boxy, there we go. So thank you, Sharp, or nope, DG Murdakill. Sorry, in the chat room. It was a Boxy box. I remember seeing that at CES. It had a remote control, just like, looked like a nice remote control. When you flipped it over, it had a keyboard and everything, so you could type in stuff. I have a little like miniature keyboard kind of like that has like a thumb touchpad on it. That's just a little bit smaller than maybe you get on like a Lenovo X201, and it's a USB RF type of thing. It's really nice to have for that type of purpose. I use it if I'm trying to do something at this desk here, but control the machine over there so I can read and move benchmarks around or something like that. So there are a lot of small HTPC based keyboard mouse combinations, but I guess you could always go with the Phantom lap pad. Is that what that was called?
Phantom?
I don't know.
Do they still sell that?
I don't know if they ever made that. Did they?
No, #1 vaporware ever. Seeing as how Duke Nukem actually came out.
Well, right. The Phantom was, but this lap board was supposed to be cool, wasn't it? Didn't that actually get released? I thought so.
I think they actually did sell it. I mean, one of the guys from Microsoft Xbox fame took over the company.
There's a buy now thing, and then right on their front page it says our lap boards have arrived.
I would never buy it from Phantom directly, maybe Amazon or something, but I would never give Phantom my credit card number. I want everybody to keep that in mind. Okay, let's see. Let's talk about Ultrabooks because those are exciting. We actually saw two different ones announced or released or shown in the past week, one from Toshiba, one from Acer, and then some news from Jeremy on the fact that these are going to be limited release availability. Jeremy, you have any more updates or descriptions on all these types of items?
Well, I mean, we're hoping that this is going to make it, but it's kind of nasty in that, this is Apple's territory. And there's no question about it. Apple is well embedded with their little iBook. I mean, even Alan was drooling over one earlier today. The MacBook Air is pretty. It's small. It's tiny. And for what it is, it's got a price point. Intel, they had to come in cheaper. I mean, it's something we've been hearing about for a long time. I mean, this bloody thing hasn't been released yet. We've got one single model out, and that's it. From where did it go? Anyways, we've got a single model that's sort of at least available for review. It's not even really available for sale, but it is available.
About this Toshiba, the Toshiba Protege Z830.
No, it's not even that.
Oh, really? Well,
let me squint enough to see through this bloody monitor and what it's done, because I don't know. It's Acer. Acer was first to market with the Aspire S3.
Okay.
But so even that one they say it's going to be around $1,200, which to me reads $1,299. So it's going to be
95
or 95.99.
No, $1,299.95. Come on, get it right.
All right, fair enough. And can we get rid of the penny when we're at it? But so, boom, you're in the exact same price as Apple is. And everyone knows that the MacBook Air works. You know, they've seen it for a while. It's mature. It's developed to the point where, you know, apart from some major lacks, which are apparently features, at least according to Jobs and whoever succeeds him, all of a sudden, you know, why buy an Ultrabook? It's a new form factor. It might not work. You know, we're not quite sure. There's going to be some growing pains versus I can spend the exact same money on something that, hey, I know it's going to work. So one of the
I tell you why you want to buy it is
Why?
because it looks sexy as hell. I'm more impressed.
Because, you know, I
with this.
buy my laptops because they're sexy. Not because I want to work with them.
Look at the functionality of this
They're
one. So
sexy.
the
You wanna work?
Toshiba, the is it Portage or Protege? Is this a typo?
Protege.
They've
think
mixed like protege and portage together into this obscene word of some sort.
So I'm going to go with Portage because that sounds funny. Z83. So some of the specs on this, I'm just going to read from Tim's post. Powered by Intel Sandy Bridge processor, housed in magnesium alloy chassis measuring 0.63 inches thick, slated to be 20% lighter and 40% thinner than the previous ultra-portable Portage R830. Let's see.
You know what the best part about magnesium chassis are?
What?
Put 2,000 degrees on them and watch them light it up like a flare. It'd be
That's
awesome.
true. You could use it to start some fires that way. They say it's reinforced with honeycomb ribbing, and he says he's sure Josh is making a joke of that right now. No? Okay.
No.
And some new internal shock dampening structures. Let's see, would weigh less than 2.5 pounds. What else I see? Sub $1,000 available November 2011. 128 gig solid state drive, DDR3 memory. Blah blah blah. Ethernet, USB, HDMI ports, stereo speakers. Toshiba's high speed start
Right.
and USB.
I'm sorry to
safe
interrupt. Your
Yep.
video's
Uh-oh.
frozen.
You're all froze up.
Oh,
Sort
there.
of. Oh, no, we came back.
Yeah, there we go. We're good. So yeah, under $1,000, November 2011. Stay tuned to PC Perspective. Blah blah blah. I think
Yeah,
that's actually
but-
a good looking machine.
It is, but how are you going to find one to buy?
Well, if they limit the quantities as you're saying they are to what?
And that's what we're saying.
50,000
is 50,000 maximum. That's not even their target.
per vendor,
That's
or
the most that they will make. Every single one of the top tier vendors. Every single one. So the top four we care about are Acer, Lenovo, Toshiba, and Asus. None of them are going to make more than 50,000. 50,000, not 15.
okay.
They don't have any confidence whatsoever. And I can understand it. They've come off the UMPC, which, you know, was such a wonderful product.
I wonder if it has something to do with Intel only subsidizing the first 50,000 units that they sell.
Well, there's a meeting on, what is it, the 14th, that they're going to try and talk this up and convince everyone that, no, the Ultrabook really is going to make it this time. And, you know, the manufacturers have been dragged kicking and screaming into this. They're saying, oh, no, you can't do it for under Apple's price. And Intel turns around and says, yes, we can. And so they give them the bill of materials and say, no, you can't. So Intel says, oh, well, we'll figure out a way. We aren't going to drop the CPU prices, and, you know, we'll give you a kickback in advertising funding and such. Don't worry, you'll make a little bit of a profit. And yeah, they're going to make a couple of bucks off of these netbooks, but I don't mean it obsequiously. I mean, they're going to make a couple of bucks off each one of these netbooks or Ultrabooks. You know, they're not going to turn a big profit on it. If all of a sudden, hey, the market explodes, people love it, they're going to start making them because, hey, you've also got the first.
These vendors
case
don't
out.
want to get into the same battle that they had in the netbooks, which was super thin margins, right? That's what they don't want to do, and maybe that's what they're afraid of here, is that even if they sell 1 million of these machines, if they're only making $10 a piece, is it really worth the risk in being involved in it? Maybe they actually learned from their, you know, the experiences they went through in the netbook field when the netbook explosion happened. I don't know. I from a consumer standpoint, I still hope these are released. I hope that they are easier to find than it looks like they're going to be, and because I want to buy one. I would totally buy one. But
if they wouldn't give you one for review,
well, they might not. If they're only going to make 50,000 of them, why would they bother doing that, right? It's, you know, something like that.
hey, you
I
got
don't
to
know.
get word of mouth out somehow.
Exactly. Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about Bulldozer-infused Trinity APU specifications and whether or not they're awesome?
It's awesome. It gets around. It's awesome. It's always down. It's awesome.
Okay. All right.
To keep going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Please.
All right. They're starting to release some of the specifications, some of the things that we've known for a while. Some we have not known so much. Apparently, Trinity is going to be made of 2 modules. Each one of those are dual cores. So we're going to have 4 threads going on at any one time, which is not so different than the A series right now, but we have 4 different separate cores in that, while the Bulldozer Trinity will just be 2 of the modules. Supposedly it'll be running a little bit better. Should be faster. And certainly is a next-generation CPU architecture as compared to what we've been used to with the Athlon 2 infused Llano. Also, we should see some significant improvements in video performance. I can't remember how things are going to be kind of gelled around. Yeah, it's going to be Southern Islands in terms of what's going to be coming in. So it's the same generation as... wait, are you sure it's Southern Islands?
Yep. First introduction of the 7000 series.
Well, yeah, but the 7000 series are broken up into 2 different ones based on the VLIW4, which is the same as the HD 6900 series, and then you've got the next generation kind of, I can't remember, core architecture that they're not copying from Intel. But anyway, it's going to be the first of the 7000 series, but it is going to be a VLIW4 design.
Yes.
They'll be able to...
this means going from VLW5 to Scalar plus VLW4.
No, it's the VLIW4, not the Scalar plus VEC4, which is kind of different from VLIW4.
This is what Charlie says.
Go Charlie. Yeah, no, it's as far as I know, Trinity is not going to be the next generation architecture that I had previewed, about a month and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be based on the VLIW4 that powers the current HD 6900 series of cards. And from everything that I've seen about the 7000 series, they're going to have the lower end, all VLIW4, and the top 2 models are going to be this next generation architecture that AMD will be putting out. And Trinity is still going to be VLIW4. It's going to have, more SIMD units, even though it's not going to have extreme, more overall stream processors. It's going to be more of the SIMD units, and because they're breaking up in VLIW4, it should be a little bit more efficient. They're working on other things like the memory controller. It's going to have more cache. And yeah, Trinity looks like it's going to be coming out a little bit sooner than expected because of a couple of different reasons that we may or may not be able to share on air. But namely, GlobalFoundries is having some real problems with their 32-nanometer process, and it's affecting everything AMD is doing. And I've heard a rumor that AMD is in fact shopping around to a different foundry partner to maybe possibly do some of their CPUs at the lower end, read TSMC, because they're already doing their Bobcat-based processors, namely the E350, C50, those kind of things. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Trinity is. They showed it off this summer. It was running well. Apparently, they're so happy about it. They're going to release it a little bit faster, and henceforth, we received more information about it just recently.
Henceforth. Also this week, Intel unveils a handful of new 32-nanometer processors, actually more than a handful, 16 new 32-nanometer processors, filling in gaps in the Celeron Pentium and Core product lines. So that anywhere ranges from $47 for some Celeron parts all the way up to $1,096 for a Core i7-2960XM. That's a mobility part, 2.7 gigahertz quad-core, hyper-threaded, 8 megs L3 cache, 55-watt part for over $1,000. That's obviously meant for mobile workstations, Alienware, those types of guys. What is actually kind of interesting is the new Core i5-2320. This is a 3 gigahertz CPU, 4 cores, 4 threads, 6 megs of L3 cache, 95 watt part, $177. So this is obviously is a Sandy Bridge part, and it kind of fills in a nice little gap there for, again, under $200. This is something that's going to more or less upset the Llano advantage that AMD may or may not have had for a little bit of time there with the release of that part. Also, the Core i3-2130, which is a dual-core hyper-threaded part, runs at 3.4 gigahertz and sells for $138. I mean, and then we go all the way down to the Celeron G440, 1.6 gigahertz, 1 core, 1 thread, 1 meg of cache, $37. I wouldn't recommend buying that for anybody you like, probably. But they are still, Intel's still pumping out the processors. They're not slowing down on the 32 nanometer process. They are obviously everybody knows they're ramping up, getting ready for Ivy Bridge release later in the year, but there still are a lot of Sandy Bridge processors to sell. And with 16 new models in the market, expect to see these in a lot of systems coming out very soon. So AMD, this is something we haven't posted on the website yet, but Josh wanted to discuss AMD shipping Bulldozer for revenue. Now, you might be wondering, where are the Bulldozer processors? You've got that 990FX motherboard just waiting for your Bulldozer processor. Where can you buy it? Is it on Newegg? Is it on Newegg, Josh?
No, it's not on Newegg.
Damn it.
I believe the only persons/company in the world that actually has the 4 revenue chips is Cray, because they're building a bunch of supercomputers based on these chips. AMD is delivering them to them first, and they're doing it probably at pretty decent margins, and Cray is throwing some big money at them. But yeah, these first parts are the Interlagos-based server chips. So that means they're 16-core, or rather 8-module. So each module, of course, has the 2 integer cores with the shared floating point MMX unit. So yeah, they're 2 physical dies on a single substrate. I think the reason that we are seeing this is, 1, you got better margins here. 2, with the problems at 32 nanometer that GlobalFoundries is having, they are not able to release these initial dies at a high enough speed and TDPs to be able to be competitive with what Intel has. And so what they're doing is they're probably downclocking these. They're putting the 2 dies on the single substrate. They're hitting their TDP areas that they're supposed to, and they're still able to sell them for a nice profit as compared to going to the desktop market and saying, well, we're gonna take a big hit on these, but we're gonna like it. Well, they don't have to like it, because I got another customer who wants as many of the damn things in the dual chip versions as possible. So they're selling them off. These are the first guys who are getting them. And again, these are not the desktop versions that they are shipping to manufacturers, though I would expect we should hear about that somewhat soon, maybe sooner rather than later, or, well, definitely before the end of the year.
Fair enough. There was another news post that it looks like, Jeremy, you just snuck in before the podcast went live, so I wanted to mention this. This was Magma, which is a company I've never heard of before, but they did something very cool. They unveiled the first 3-slot Thunderbolt expansion chassis. What does this mean? You connect. So we know Thunderbolt, it only exists on Apple machines right now. That will change in the near future. The Magma Express Box 3T is a Thunderbolt to PCI Express expansion chassis. It offers 3 PCI Express expansion slots with 10 gigabits per second of Thunderbolt connectivity, and you can daisy chain up to 6 of these devices. So you could add up to 3 PCI Express add-in cards into this external chassis and then connect it to your machine. This is what is awesome about the promise of Thunderbolt. I don't know if it'll actually come true, but this is, the promise of what we want out of this. So now you can, hook up just about anything to your MacBook Pro, which is a very compelling idea now. You're talking video capture, media transcoding, audio processing, fast data storage, anything like that. Anything that you can
put a
throw
MERS
in.
2 on it?
I don't know what its power limits are. I'm guessing no. And getting a Crossfire driver for your Apple machine might be a bad idea. But it's possible. Maybe if you're running it under Windows, you can do that. Although I don't see any power interesting there. It does have its own external power supply if you want to use that as well. So this is pretty cool, right? So you can hook up an external unit, and you can put like a 480 gig PCI Express based SSD on there, or you can put like a Blackmagic HDMI input card on there, something that you couldn't do any other way through the crappy configuration options that Apple offers you on their machines. So this is pretty cool, and this is the type of thing I hope comes to the PC, that my PC, my desktop, or my laptop will have these options for these external connections, that type of thing. I mean, is this something? I mean, does this interest you, Alan, particularly in terms of like storage and that type of thing? Is this something that you see benefits used for in this Thunderbolt technology?
Yeah, I mean, anything that gives you better bandwidth to the device, it just needs to catch on, is the thing, right? Because Thunderbolt, we're just, we don't see it in a lot of stuff yet.
So 10 gigabits per second is what, 1.25 gigabytes per second?
Yep, which is nothing
right?
to sneeze at.
Oh, no. No, that's you could get some pretty good storage, throughput on that.
True, but realize it's going to be, you're not going to get the full bandwidth out of that, like in some cases, right? If you're using the whole Mac setup where you're using the Cinema display now that has that built in, it passes Thunderbolt through basically. Some of that's bandwidth for video, right? Isn't that is it HDMI with Thunderbolt along with it, or just does the Thunderbolt just pass everything?
So Thunderbolt acts like a PCI Express interface. The internal, like the machine on the laptop sees it as a PCI Express interface. So you're basically extending the PCI Express bus outside of the laptop to this external device.
But I think what he's asking is that HDMI signal actually put over the same interface as Thunderbolt, or are they just two different wires? And I think
you mean the DisplayPort interface? Oh, okay.
Two different wires going in there.
Okay, I feel better now.
You got them side by side.
Okay.
One plug.
Yes.
Doing all
one plug.
the same thing.
One plug.
One plug to rule them all,
So to speak. So that's cool. Check that out. We posted up news and a little diagram that they provided us at PCPer.com. Make sure you check that out. Now, we're going to get into a couple of emails here. Before we do that, I promised you a Drobo contest. So if you go to bit.ly/PCPerDrobo, all one word, bit.ly/PCPerDrobo, you'll get a nice friendly form asking you for just a little bit of information: name, email, phone, state, country, a couple of
Social
questions.
Security number, credit card numbers.
It's all legit, completely legitimate.
Account.
Yeah, completely legitimate information there. And so you sign up there, and you will be entered to win a Drobo. I'm not exactly sure which one, but we'll figure that out sooner or later. But it doesn't really matter what kind of Drobo it is. You probably want to win it. So go to bit.ly, and I just saw a little pop-up on my machine about a new trending bit. I can take a guess of what that one would be. So that's you go there, enter that, and even if you don't win, keep in mind you are going to give them your email address. So I don't think they're going to put you on a mailing list, but they are going to email everybody who doesn't win a discount code if you wanted to buy a Drobo off of their website. So interesting nonetheless. And all that we ask for this opportunity to win a Drobo is if you have a Twitter account that you say something to the effect of thanks to #Drobo, #Drobo for supporting @PCPer, right? Just to say thanks to Drobo for supporting PC Perspective. Get their name out there. If you have Facebook, if you want to use Facebook, you can find their Drobo Facebook page and like them there. We're going to have a whole news post up sometime tomorrow when this podcast actually goes live, detailing what we would like you to do to help support Drobo, for helping to support us, and then giving you stuff as well. So thanks a lot to Drobo for that. And chances are a lucky listener or reader will have a new Drobo in their system within a couple of weeks. I'm actually going to give away two. I think one over this course of 2 weeks, and then one in the first 2 weeks of October as well. All right, let's get to a handful of emails. Podcast@PCPer.com is the email address. 1-888 is the 1-888-38-PCPer is the toll-free telephone number in U.S. and Canada that will probably get dropped soon because we get nothing but sales calls on it now. which is really ironic and kind of disturbing. So,
Papers.
yeah, not the funny type of sales calls, unfortunately, either. So we have a handful of questions here. Let's throw the first one to Jeremy, asking about GPU selection. Did you correct your monitor? Are you ready to read words on that screen now, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm so ready to pick QE. Pantone corrector is my pick of the week. But I will forgive them because you can reset it back to default.
Yes.
Enough about me. We've got a man who emailed us. Hey, PC Per crew. First off, I'd like to say thank you for all the hard work you put into producing the podcast and the website, because we do. Like, really, it's work. I check your website daily, listen to the podcast weekly, because I can't get enough of PC hardware goodness. In previous shows, you've talked about there being a shortage of 6900 series cards, which stinks because I'm looking to upgrade. And hey, it's not just you that thinks that stinks. But he wants to pump up his 5850 before Battlefield 3 and Skyrim come out. So the question is, would it be better to go ahead and get a Sapphire 6950 Toxic Edition, provided they do come back into stock because, hey, they're tied in with the 6970s? Or should I wait for a new generation of graphics cards? Are there any indications that a new generation will be coming out later this year, or should I go ahead and take the plunge? Well, Intel is being a little bit cagey about when exactly we're going to see their next generation of cards. They seem fairly confident. Oh,
did you say Intel?
AMD. I think I did. I meant AMD.
You didn't mean that, yeah.
No, I did not. But Intel is also being a little bit cagey about their next. But
they're being real cagey about their Night Bridge. Damn guys won't release it.
Nice. But it's ready anytime now, which is kind of what AMD is saying as well. To the point where one of Josh's speculations was, we're not seeing 6970s and 6950s because the manufacturers don't want to buy anymore. They just want to sell the stock they got, because it might be that we're going to see the next generation come out pretty soon. Hard to say if you can bet money on that. Yeah. So if you're going to bet money, the 6950 Toxic Edition is still going to be good this time next year. Even with the upgrades that are coming out, that is a pretty decent card. There's also a Lightning Edition that Josh has played with that he also loved. But a lot of these top-end 6950s are brilliant, are they not?
Yeah, that's it. They're good value. I've got a pair of the Twin Frozer 2s, MSI, that I flashed up to 6970 versions, and they're just fantastic boards for the price.
You're such an elite hacker.
Oh, it's good to have friends on the inside, I guess.
I got my Sapphire up before you got yours up.
Yes, you did.
Whoa. Come on, guys.
Stop that.
Come on, guys. Easy now. All right. There you go, Wes. Hope that answers the question. Chris has a question about GPU wine, and nobody I know wines better than Josh.
Good Lord. I think you could be right. From Chris about GPU wine. Not hopped, not fermented, but wine.
Nope. WHINE.
Yeah, I'm getting a high-pitched whine static from my speaker whenever the graphics card is being used. That's strange because I only get the high-pitched whine static when my wife is yelling at me. But anyway, when I run folding at home, it gets really annoying. Ditto. Even with the volume turned all the way down to the speakers, it goes away when I unplug the speakers from the computer, so it's not capacitor whine. It happens to a lesser extent when I am playing games or watching full-screen videos. Darker ones are worse.
Doom 3.
I'm not sure what that means. I've re-downloaded and reinstalled the drivers already, and the system is not OC'd. Video card is not OC'd. My system, i5 2500K, some MSI board, Corsair XT 750 watt power supply, Galaxy GTX 570, Klipsch THX 2.1 speakers, Dell U2711 monitor, and then a secondary Samsung SyncMaster 225BW. Any suggestions on how to get rid of the sound? It's not the speakers. I just swapped them out with another old set, and they make the same noise. I'm guessing he's got something goofy with the audio on his motherboard because he doesn't have a standalone sound card. Alan, do you agree?
I think there's two things. He's using the Klipsch THX speakers, right, which are amplified, like internal amplified speakers, that kind of thing.
He says he swapped out his with an older set, and they make the same noise.
Right. But either way, basically, he's running it as if it was like sort of like a laptop where you're controlling the volume from the software in Windows only.
Okay.
That sort of thing, right? And then you put your speakers at whatever the volume is, and then you just leave it that way. Actually, either way, sound is probably, even if it's all the way down, like in Windows, but if he still gets it on the speakers, it's most likely coming from the motherboard. Like he's using onboard sound, and some motherboard manufacturers, they just decide to put that chip in a real bad spot. Like they'll typically put right where the ports are, which also
he says it happens when the graphics card's being used. So
which is where that chip usually is located on the motherboard,
right up above that PCIe slot.
Yeah, so it's right there. And it's just picking up the noise, be it from the motherboard traces or from the video card itself. It's probably the power to some of the power going to the PCI Express slot.
That was my other thought on this was I have heard something similar to that through some graphics cards paired with certain power supplies. Now I don't hear them through the speakers. I hear them coming from the graphics card itself, which is interesting.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. That's actually
and that can be passing through to the sound card as well. So, if you have the capability to swap out a different GPU, I might try that. If you might have the capability of swapping out a power supply, I might try that before. Or if you have a discrete sound card, you can throw in there.
Now, here's the thing: if those Klipsch speakers have volume control of their own, and that's all the way down, and you still get that sound, like as soon as he plugs that audio jack in, literally, it's almost like as soon as it's touching the chassis of the PC almost, that sound comes in even with both volumes all the way down. It's probably something entirely different, which is called a ground loop. And basically that means that the ground level of the speakers is different than the ground level of the PC. Make sure you're not doing any of that silliness where you have, those, maybe if you have an older house, like a really older house, and you have ungrounded outlets, that sort of deal, that can cause that kind of thing to happen. Just some other different complicated things can cause it. However, just look on like Amazon or something for, if that's what's going on, look on Amazon for like a ground loop isolator. They make these things. They're these little boxes, which you can buy. Which I have.
Where'd he go?
I happen to have one.
He's gone. He's disappeared.
I happen to have one right here.
Looping.
Okay, so here you go.
There.
Ground loop isolator. It's a little box. It has an isolation transformer in it, and then it has a couple of headphone. Well, in this case, there's a female and a male headphone jack thing. So it basically is like a passive.
Depending on who owns the ground loop separator.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
so
what state you're in, and if they get 50-50,
custody and so this is let's see, PAC Audio, PAC-audio.com makes this guy. I think it was like $10 or something. But if that's what the case is, so the reason I ended up using something like this was I had a laptop sitting on the desk next to my PC, and for some reason, if I plugged the laptop into the same set of speakers, like in the back channel of my speakers, compared to my PC, which uses the front channel of my speakers, if for some reason if my PC and the laptop were both connected to the speakers at the same time, instantly all the speakers would make that same kind of whine, like a really weird, whine, and then a different changing load on the PC. Not necessarily just the video card, but the PC as a whole would change the sound. And the same thing, like changing load on the laptop would change the sound too.
Will that fix my problem in my car stereo when I have my phone plugged into the power socket and to the headphone socket?
What kind of
and
whine?
you're accelerating?
And I get,
yes. Is it
and turning left.
It is alternator based whine.
Yeah, that's alternator whine, and that's what a ground loop isolator also gets rid of.
Awesome. I'm going to buy 10 of those tomorrow.
Look up Enforce 2 Soundstorm, because that was a very popular audio chip that had the exact same problem in many cases.
So I have a separate suggestion though. I mean, he might just want to get like a nice PCI Express sound card. Just find some $50 cheapo.
Is it going to cost more than $10, Alan?
Well, it might be like $50, but you're getting better audio than you're getting from your motherboard. Seriously.
Yeah, no, I agree. I
mean, he has clipped
the source
speakers,
of the
so
problem is
he cares about the audio quality if he bought those kinds of speakers, and
Sure.
he probably has a good ear for it if he's picking up that
Or somebody
wine's
gave
driving
us
him
speakers.
crazy. Get like a Zonar or something.
Yeah, no, those are good options too.
Or buy one of the Magma Thunderbolt expansions and plug a sound card into the external Thunderbolt. There you go.
For the Thunderbolt port, you don't have. Alan, let's answer Lee's question about SSD security.
All right, Lee has this question. I love your podcast and watch every week. I've got 2 questions about SSDs. Number 1, will Trim work with an SSD if the whole drive is encrypted with TrueCrypt? I'm talking about encrypting the whole drive as a device, not just a file on the drive. Well, first, what I think he's going for is just a full drive encryption, which is not necessarily a device, but it's you're telling TrueCrypt, yes, encrypt the entire this drive, basically. And what it does is it just encrypts the data before it gets past the drive. I'm pretty sure Trim does not work through that. So my suggestion has always been for people that are using that kind of thing to use the drives that tend to behave a little bit better when you're not trimming them, which is SandForce. But there's a catch there because you're encrypting it. So encrypting the contents of the drive, depending on how TrueCrypt, like which algorithm you use, might not be compressible at all by the SandForce. So you might basically lose any of the benefit you'd get from the whole don't trim thing. Because SandForce is more robust against not trimming because it compresses data in the background, so it's not actually using all the flash most of the time, even if you've written to every sector on the drive. So that's kind of a toss-up. I would just recommend Intel or SandForce. Either one should be okay. So let's see. How will Trim work? Okay, we did that one. Number 2, how safe is your data from forensic probing if you're using Intel Smart Response technology with an Intel 311 solid-state drive for caching data on a spindle-type hard drive? Seems to me that passwords and other confidential data will be stored in the clear on the 311 SSD and can be accessible to anyone with the ability to read 311's data sector by sector. Okay, the TrueCrypt driver should sit above the Intel RST, Rapid Storage Technology driver. So the data that's passed to the Intel driver should already be encrypted by TrueCrypt, which will mean that any sectors that get cached to the 311 should also be encrypted just like they were encrypted in the same sector mirrored to the spinning disk. So you should be good there. Yeah, that's pretty much the answer for that one. And of course, he's talking about the Z68 chipset Intel caching that we took a look at, which is highly recommended by me if you don't want to buy the whole full-blown solid-state.
I agree. Cool. All right. We have one more email. Comes from a mystery writer, and they're asking about GPU stuttering. He says, does GPU stuttering go away when you have 2 GPUs on a single card? Having 4 GPUs in your system with an APU processor, would that take away the stuttering? I was thinking because 3 GPUs, it seems to correct itself. When having 2, it seems to increase stuttering. Does an SSD or having more bus on a motherboard help take away those issues? I'm not exactly sure what.
Maybe
to
instead of like a
bus.
2x8 connection, 2x16.
Oh, I see. Okay, higher bandwidth. No, the answer is to all those questions, really no. This is something that is kind of an interesting topic. There will be some interesting content produced on this very topic very soon by a couple of different websites, actually. It doesn't go... So if you're seeing stuttering, gaming micro-stuttering, which is basically the idea that frames coming from different... You're seeing frames not at a consistent frame rate, right? So you're seeing spikes in frame time and drops in frame time. It's more noticeable with SLI and Crossfire because you have more complications in the rendering times it takes for frames and GPUs to be output by frames, or for frames to be output by GPUs and then displayed on your screen. It does not go away when you have 2 GPUs on a single card, like the Mars 2 or GTX 590 or Radeon 6990. You'd have the same issues with single GPU cards in SLI or Crossfire as you would with SLI or Crossfire on a single PCB. So that's not going to take them away. he referenced an article over at Tom's Hardware that talked about if you have 3 GPUs, the issue seems to correct itself. There's an interesting theory that I have on why that is the case that I don't really feel like getting into here because it will take me an hour to try to explain it. It really doesn't get rid of the stuttering. What it does is it mitigates those gaps you see because SLI and Crossfire, from a driver perspective, aren't as well behaved when handling more than 2 GPUs. That's why you see decreased scaling in 3 and 4 GPUs and those types of things as well. Obviously, having an APU processor isn't going to take away any of the stuttering. It doesn't really get involved with these high-end GPUs, those types of things. It's an interesting problem that we are trying to address and figure out a unique way of testing for and evaluating that hopefully sometime before the end of this year we will have a system in place to do so. But anybody any of you guys have experience with micro stuttering that you can notice micro stuttering that it annoys you about micro stuttering or anything like that?
Yes.
You see it in your multi-GPU setup?
I do. I got multi-GPU Crossfire set up with 3 monitors. And even though, let's say in Dirt 3, which was a legal copy in my case, it's averaging, let's say it's averaging 46 frames per second. For a driving game, that's pretty good. And you think, wow, that's very... it's high. It should be smooth. It should be pretty decent, but it's not. There's all kinds of little stutterings in there, and it takes away from the entire experience. And oddly enough, in this case, the 2 cards that I have as compared to, say, NVIDIA's 2 GTX 580s, it has about a little like 3 frames per second higher average. But there's a little less micro stuttering, and so it actually seems a little bit smoother. But yeah, in things like that, it's annoying. It's like, why can't this be smooth? I have enough frames, I got enough horsepower. Why it doesn't feel just so visceral when I use like 1 and a 1920 by 1200 resolution, when that is just perfectly smooth at only 10 frames per second higher than what we have here. So yeah, it's annoying as all get out.
Interesting. So yes, there will be more discussion on this in the coming weeks and through the rest of this year as well as we trying to work on a kind of an interesting project on our end to show people how micro stuttering exists, why it exists, those types of things, and hopefully come down harder on or at least showcase the GPU drivers teams that are doing better jobs at trying to correct it. So yeah, let's go to if we have our video question from David queued up, we will do that. We always encourage people to send us YouTube links, video questions, those types of things. Keep them short. This one's about 40-something seconds. Shorter than this would be better, but let's see what his question is and if we can help him out. Verbally, perhaps.
Do you want me to say, so, Brian Trott, I think you are a... Oh.
No. Well, let's try it again with audio. Can we get audio? Got audio?
Yeah, Josh's video, but his audio.
Oh, good Lord.
Lip sync, my man. Lip sync.
Well, looks like we're having problems with audio. That's okay. I don't remember the question, so we'll answer it. You do remember the question?
RAID 0.
Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead.
So basically he has a gateway, I forget which system, but one of the ones that came with AMD 6-core CPU.
Okay.
Poor Burke's really trying to get this video working. Yeah, and he's running...
That system right there.
He wants to run a pair of SSDs in RAID, I think, but he also, right now he has a 1 terabyte hard drive. So the idea is just trying to figure out, like, how do I get from point A to point B? I don't have any solid-state drives. I want to run a pair of them in RAID 0. Right now I just have this 1 terabyte hard drive. Okay. And then I think he asked, like, do they all 3 of them have to be in the RAID together? And so, no, it doesn't have to be that way.
Okay.
Now, the question is what he can use for the RAID. Now, what I don't know is if his gateway system has the, like, BIOS options or the option ROM to give him, like, the AMD motherboard, whatever that motherboard may be, basically to give him RAID type options. So in other words, so he can use motherboard based RAID. which is the way that I would prefer to go because you don't have to buy a RAID card or anything else for that matter. And I'm not sure, since he didn't give us like a model number of a system, so I couldn't go digging around for it. But
Right.
check, see if that option's there, because it's cheap. It's built in. You're only doing RAID 0. You don't need anything crazy for a RAID solution. Your motherboard can handle that just fine. If it doesn't have that, and if he still wants to go RAID 0 with solid state drives, he asked about which way should I go for RAID cards or should I be upgrading my motherboard? Well, as long as your gateway system is not any kind of funky proprietary thing where upgrading the motherboard is easy, and if you were thinking of doing it anyway, honestly, that is cheaper than going with any kind of a decent RAID card. And by decent RAID card, I mean one that's actually going to benefit from a pair of solid-state drives sitting behind it properly. So yeah, the motherboard is just the easier way to go. Then you're going with native, like motherboard RAID, probably still the best way to go for RAID 0 solutions. And then when all is said and done, what you do, whether it's onto your RAID card or new motherboard with the new fresh pair of SSDs under it in a RAID 0, I would use that as an excuse to do a OS reinstall, honestly. Unless your 1 terabyte hard drive happens to have enough, not enough data on it to where you can fit it all on your striped RAID 0 solid-state drives, then just use one of the, any kind of mirroring software, Paragon or Ryan, which one are you using lately? Is it Paragon or
True
or Acronis?
Acronis, there you go. Yeah,
that's a pretty good one too. Basically, you can use that, and then you can just use mirror your 1 terabyte drive over to the solid state drives, and then when that all is said and done, then just format the 1 terabyte drive and use it for mass storage after that.
Very cool. All right, let's get to our hardware and software picks of the week. I'm going to start with one. I don't think I have selected this before. We might have discussed it for previous for projects we're working on here in the PC Perspective Studio. This is the Blackmagic Design is the name of the company. Intensity Pro. These are they make an external and an external USB 3.0 unit and an internal PCI Express by 1 add-in card that supports HDMI input up to 1080p resolution. Up to 1080p at 30 frames per second, 720p at 60 frames per second. And what's nice about these cards is that you have the capability then to get video out of high definition video cameras completely uncompressed. And when I say completely uncompressed, I mean that enormous data file sizes. I don't know if Ken's listening. He could remind me if it was like 300 megs a minute. No, more than that.
Second,
it might be
probably.
Yeah, a video, right? So you definitely need to have a lot of storage space and some pretty fast storage to do this. They do the add-in card has HDMI input and output, and then it supports component input and output as well. The USB 3 based breakout box has HDMI, component, composite, S-video, those types of things. Really, and some nice software as well if you just want to record the video. I think this card is very popular for people that, if you go to YouTube and watch games, PC games, replays, tutorials, those types of things where they're not just using a camera in front of their TV and it looks like nice captured quality. This is the card they're using. We've had really, really good success with this type of stuff for what we've been using it for. If you're following me on Google Plus or on Twitter, you notice we've been asking a lot of questions about video capture, high-end video capture, like being able to capture 2560 by 1600 resolutions at 60 frames per second. This card will not do that. No card that exists today currently that I know of will do that. But if you want to do 1080p, 720p, standard def stuff, this is a really high-quality card that does it all on hardware. You don't have to have super high-end software to do that. But this is a way to go. And I think it's is it $199, maybe $299? It's relatively, I think it's $199. So this is definitely a reasonably priced product if you have some high-definition video input desires. So back up that porn collection, right, Josh?
What porn collection?
Exactly.
I'm married and have 2 children.
Exactly.
All
So
encrypted
exactly.
So your porn collection. Jeremy, what do you got for us?
Well, I was going to complain about what the Huey did to me mid-podcast, but instead I'll be positive and point out that somebody, if you've run into my picks before, you know that I like the coil guns. Coil guns are fun. Somebody made a coil gun revolver. And okay, you do actually have to advance to the next chamber with your thumb, but you have a coil gun revolver. You know, run by electricity, a little magnetic charge, shooting out a little piece of high-density metal that's magnetic, and just a lot of fun. I'm sorry, but coil guns are evolving very quickly, and you know, sooner or later, that thing that Mal used to shoot in Firefly, you know, you'll be able to get it. And if you're having trouble aiming, you know, because coil guns will go a long distance, there's a brand new thing out from the place you should never buy anything from, but it's still fun. Wicked Laser has a brand new green Krypton, which will make you uncomfortable if they even pointed at you, let alone hit your eye with it. So there you go. Set one up.
I like the title at Gizmodo. Holy Christ! Now it's green and goes into space.
There's no use for it. There is utterly no use for that thing.
It has an 85-mile range.
That's how long 85-mile blinding range. You just accidentally point it 85 miles away. Somebody happens to look in that direction. Yeah, they're permanently blind in that eye now.
So that's 85 miles in the regular atmosphere. If you're pointing it into space, it's probably going.
And it's going to be hard to benchmark that, you know.
Who wants to be blind? Why do they, this
shoot
is all
the astronauts on the moon?
This is all legal to sell, huh?
It's to sell. Yeah, it's not a good idea to point it up in the air, though.
Not so much.
Interesting. Okay. I hope nobody I know ever buys one of those because we drink too much alcohol. Josh,
me?
What is your selection? Is it safer?
Yes, it is. You know, I got a couple of Thermaltake headphones that I'm doing reviews on, and I thought I'd give you a little tease. One of them is not crap. The other is. The one that is not crap is the Shock Spin. Now, these are the open air version headphones. I got a 50mm driver in there. They actually sound really good. And they're only like, what, $61, $62? And for that kind of price and that kind of quality, I was really impressed. They're DTS 5.1 ones. They're garbage. Garbage, Carl. It's garbage. But anyway, yeah, for $61, if you want a pretty good quality set of headphones, this is a good choice. And the only thing that you should think about is because they are open ear, if you're going into noisy environments, you're going to hear the outside noise. It's not, you know, the enclosed cup where all you hear is the music or whatever you're listening to. Right. God forbid if you're actually listening to our podcast in MP3 or whatever kind of form that has no audio or no video in it whatsoever. You know, these may not be so good. So figure out where you're going to use them most and go with it from there.
All right. Last but not least, Alan.
Before my pick, okay, so that crazy laser pointer that Jeremy just talked about, the S3 Krypton, right?
Yeah.
They sell a 1-watt version for $1,000.
That's this version, isn't it?
Well,
doesn't it burn paper and everything else?
That's like the pop balloons and stuff like that thing, but the specs on the website just make you laugh. It's like, will appear over 8,000 times brighter than looking directly at the sun.
Don't try this at home, folks.
Yeah, so speaking of bright things, I figured, what the heck, I might as well do this, because I don't think I've ever made this a pick, but it's always sitting on my desk here. Surefire. If you don't have some kind of Surefire flashlight, you probably should. I was insane about this, sort of like how some people are about laser pointers. So when I bought this flashlight, I think 12 years ago now, yeah, it was like a couple $100 at the time, so it was kind of pricey. But I used it on like the submarine and all this other stuff, and it's not exactly, the submarine is not easy on anything. You know, you drop stuff and stuff breaks all over the place. And so this thing's like all, you know, aluminum, freaking the whole housing is aluminum, and it's bright as heck. It's like an LED.
Oh well, yeah. Thanks.
I think I broke. I think I broke the webcam.
It's like you just did that to the intern at that laser pointer site. Oh, that must be 6,000 times more bright than the sun.
At least.
Yeah, but
at least.
The thing's
It
pretty
does
darn
come with
bright.
safety goggles though, so that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I don't know,
I'm
I've
pointing
always
at something
preferred the
black
mag lights
behind
with
me.
the 3 or 4 double D batteries in them. Nobody.
Yeah, so
All right.
that's
3 4
kinda
D
bright.
batteries. That's
And then I ended up like splurging and getting the lithium ion like whatever special battery crap for it back in the day, which have lasted 10 years, by the way. Lithium ion batteries lasting 10 years is usually doesn't happen. Anyhow, so Surefire makes some pretty darn good flashlights. They make like all kinds of tactical gear and like the flashlight you'd have like sitting on your rifle and crap like that. It's pretty good
I'm
stuff.
sorry, I'm still going back to that Wicked Lasers thing. One of the icons on the features
Want one
page of
now,
the
don't
S3
you?
Krypton is 100% guaranteed legal.
Yeah, it's a 1 watt laser
to own.
that has let's see. Yeah, there's just some crazy stuff on there for specs. 100% duty cycle, so it's rated just to like stay on. A
The
1
review
watt
on
laser.
the guy on Gizmodo who wrote about it said, I'm not even sure if I can in good conscience tell you to buy this. I'm terrified of it. My roommate made me put it away. I slept anxiously knowing it was in my apartment. It's a giant metal $1,000 liability.
It's true.
But fun.
I guess. I don't know what I'm with him. I don't know what you do with it. Anyway, that will wrap up this episode of the PC Perspective Podcast. Again, if you want to write us, podcast at pcper.com is the email address. 1-888-38-PC-PER, toll free in the U.S. and Canadian areas. I guess, if you guys have phones up there. pcper.com/podcast is the URL you should use to find this show and to share this show with your friends and anybody else who's interested in PC hardware or our bizarre sense of humor. Twitter.com/Ryan Shrout and Twitter.com/PCPer, all updated with our latest news and information as they go live. Make sure you are paying attention to those, following them if you haven't already. So, thanks everybody for listening to this week's show. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Al Malventano.
And we'll talk to you next week.